This recruiting video from the British Army plays on what many of us want, and it plays on what the army thrives on. So don't we all want to belong and be part of something bigger than ourselves? We want people who will be right there alongside us in the difficult moments. We want to know there's people who we can share a laugh with, even in those difficult moments. And if any of you have ever been anywhere near the British military, you'll know they can share a laugh in even the darkest moments. Nothing is beyond humour. Leaving the military. I've just kicked the plug out of the projector. I'll come back on in a minute, I'll catch us up eventually. Leaving the military can often be an incredibly difficult time. Some of you who know me, who know a little bit about me, will know that I had difficulty leaving the military 11 years ago. The most difficult moment for me was on my first day as a pastor, when I opened my wardrobe and I thought, well, what do I wear? Will somebody tell me what to wear? I can't make this decision. But for a lot of people, the difficulties are beyond just what to wear. It's that leaving behind the group of people that has become their family. It's leaving behind a group of people with whom you've shared really difficult experiences. It's leaving behind people who you worked with on something that is bigger than you, something that is more important than you. You shared common goals and aims for something important. And that's hard to work away from. As I left the Air Force, there were parts of that were hard. And for a long time I missed that kinship, that fellowship together. And I often wondered why we don't have that in the church. Surely we have a bond that is even stronger than that in the military. Surely we're working for something even bigger and even greater than the military is working for. Why don't we have that bond? And I wondered that for a long time, until just recently. Projector's with us again, that's good. And the reason I stopped wondering about it recently is because I really think that now, here and now, we are building that kind of fellowship and bond and unity. I think we're seeing that happen here in this small group of believers who meet here. We look forward to coming together on a Sunday and on a Wednesday. When one of us is going through a difficult time, and there's been a lot of us going through difficult times over the last 6 months or year, some people rally round them and are concerned and want to help. When one of our members had a family wedding 2 weeks ago, we all rejoiced with them at the news of that wedding. As we approach a baptism in 2 weeks' time, the whole fellowship is excited about it. And when we have another wedding here in the building next month, well, the whole family here is invited to come and be part of that rejoicing. And so the things that I'm about to say, I know I am, in a very literal sense as well as a figurative one, preaching to the converted. Everything I'm about to say, take it as an encouragement to continue what we are doing, rather than as a chastisement that says in a way that we're not doing these things. I think we are. Let's build on that and continue to do these things. But listen, the first lesson. Oh, why I couldn't play it through PowerPoint. It kept jumping on and off. The first lesson is that there will be difficult times. There will be discouragements and hard times. I know that sometimes we think that as Christians, we should have life easier than non-Christians. Our life as a Christian should be easier than it was before we came to know Christ. So all we're trying to do is do God's will. So why doesn't he stop all these bad things from happening to us? I imagine that some of the people in Jerusalem at the time of Nehemiah would have thought that. It was God's will for the temple to be rebuilt. They were building it for his glory. This was the city that God had set apart for him to be worshipped in. Surely God would make sure everything went smoothly when they started building it again. So why, God, were you allowing things to go wrong when all of this was being done for your glory? But the reality for them, as it is for us, is that actually we live in a world in which there is an enemy of God and his work. Satan is there in the world to hamper the work of God at every single turn. And so it's no surprise whatsoever that in the first few verses, those who were not numbered amongst God's people turned up to ridicule them and to try and put a stop to what they were doing. And yes, sadly, we can expect that in our own lives as well. We can expect that even people in our own families and those who we work with and our friends who have known us for years will try to turn us away from following God's direction. We can expect ridicule for choosing to spend Sundays here. We can expect people to scoff at us for contributing financially to the work of this church, for going out into the park on Fridays and taking hot chocolate, or for taking holiday from work to come and do children's work. We can expect people to put us down for wanting to read the Bible and pray rather than doing the things that they would do. We can expect people to ridicule us for wanting to be different to the way the world is. We'll face opposition in our own lives. Personally, we will face oppositions as a church. When we sought to obtain this building 2 years ago, we faced legal opposition, people trying to stop that from happening. Some of those who were with us at the beginning left because they couldn't see that the work was ever going anywhere. It seemed too hard, too unlikely. We were too small a group. There will be difficulties and setbacks and discouragements. Not despite the fact that this is God's work, but because this is God's work. Do you know what? That those discouragements and those difficulties will have two amazing effects. They will draw us closer to God, and they will draw us closer to each other. People who've been through difficult things together draw closer to each other, like those soldiers in the video. The fact that they were there getting soaking wet after a long, hard day in the field draws them together with a bond that they will never forget. The people in Nehemiah who were building a city for God to be worshipped in, the difficulties, the problems, the hardships was going to draw them even closer together as a group. They didn't know it at that time, but they were building the city into which God was going to send Jesus Christ. They were building the city into which God was going to send Jesus to lay down his life on a cross so that everybody who believes and trusts in him might come to know God as their Saviour. God's plan of salvation was going to be worked out in this very city that they were rebuilding. I think Satan knew that. And I think Satan wanted it stopped. What is God going to do through this church? If we face difficulties, if Satan is trying to stop the things that we're trying to do as individuals and as a church, we've got to ask ourselves, what amazing things is God going to do through us? We need to let those difficulties draw us together and unite, rather than letting them push us apart. We have no idea what God might do through this church, but I think it's going to be amazing. Secondly, in verses 19 and 20, Nehemiah, he realised that the work was very spread out. And he said, if anybody's in trouble, well, the trumpet needs to be blown, and everybody in the city, you're to rush to that person who's in trouble. All of you go together and support that one who's in difficulties. I think those soldiers, assuming they were soldiers and not actors, that those soldiers would have understood that idea. Soldiers understand the idea of everybody in a company coming together to support the one who's in difficulty. Those risk their own lives to support one injured colleague. Do you know what unites us as children of God whose faith is in Jesus Christ is far, far stronger. We have a bond and a unity that goes way beyond serving in the military with somebody. If they could understand the concept of rallying around to one who's in difficulty, well, how much more us? How much more reason do we have to support each other when things get tough? If one of us is going through a difficult time, the rest of us need to rally to that person. And here's one of the advantages of a small church. We often compare ourselves to the bigger church. We'd love to have their resources. Of course we'd love to have the resources of the bigger churches. We'd love to have a huge group of people that we can call upon when we come to do holiday clubs and open days and things like that. And we just see the disadvantages of being a small church. There are advantages as well. And here's one of the great advantages. We're small enough we know each other. We know each other. We know each other well. We can see when somebody comes through those doors on Sunday and they look at you and they say, yes, I'm fine. We can see in their eyes that they're not. We know each other well enough to spot those things. We can put an arm around the shoulder. Tell them that we're with them. That we're there to help and support. Here's a little encouragement to us as well, because although I think we're really good at supporting one another, one of the areas that perhaps we just struggle a little bit is accepting that help ourselves. Don't be afraid to come and tell us and to be honest with us about the difficulties. And don't be too proud to accept the help. It's just why God has put us in a family of believers here, so that we can talk to each other and have that help. In verse 22, Nehemiah instructed the people who were living outside the city walls, come and stay inside. Stop living out there where it's dangerous, where we can't get to you to support you. Come and live as part of the community. The Bible encourages Christians to keep on meeting together. That doesn't mean, as some have applied it over the years, you have to be at every Sunday meeting, you have to be at every midweek meeting. I think it was overused and applied wrongly. It means just don't give up being part of this community. Don't walk away. Remain part of it. Be here when you can. Because having on your own, it is lonely and dangerous. As part of the community of God's believers, we can support and encourage and help one another. Thirdly, there will be times, even when we stick together, even when we're supporting each other the best that we can, there will be times when we think that either we as individuals or collectively as a church, that it's getting too much. The difficulties that I face right now are too big for me to face. I can't deal with any more. Or as a church, when we think, just can't manage them. There's too few of us, the problems are too big. We can't go on. Those are the moments when we need to remember who it is who drew us together. We need to remember who it is that we serve. We serve an awesome God. Look at verse 14. As Nehemiah spoke to the people, he said, don't be afraid of them. Remember the Lord who is great and awesome. They're just people. They're just humans. We serve a God who is bigger, more powerful, stronger. He is great and awesome. Being a Christian doesn't mean that we're exempt trouble at all, but it does mean that there is absolutely nothing that can happen to us that is bigger than we, with God, can face. Because with God's help, we can face everything. Look at what God has already done for you. He created the universe just by speaking. He gave you life. He knit you together in your mother's womb. He had a plan of salvation. He made a nation out of two people who were in their 90s and childless. He rescued that nation later on out of slavery. He had Jerusalem built as a place for his worship. He had it rebuilt to be the place where Jesus would be crucified, so that all who come to him, trusting in him for forgiveness and his sacrificial death, would find redemption and be brought into the family of believers. He brought you to faith in him. And he saved you and he adopted you as his child. Our God is awesome. And as we read in Romans 8, we think that the God who didn't spare his own son so that you could be saved, do you think he's going to leave you now? Do you think a God who did that for you is going to leave you tomorrow? He's never going to leave you. Discouragements and opposition will come. But we are part of a family that God has drawn together for mutual support. Let's stay united, as we have been doing. As I said, this is an encouragement to keep on doing what we're doing. Because I think this church is amazing right now. Let's remain united as a family that supports and helps each other in whatever situations we face. Let's rally to those who are in need when we see that they're in need. Giving practical help or moral support or encouragement or just being willing to listen, whatever that person needs. And let's remember the awesome power of the God who brought us together and who will never leave us.